I'm handing the meeting over to you.
Okay, this is the April 14th, 2001 meeting of the White Lake Township Parks and Recreation Committee at 7 p.m. So we're going to call the meeting to order. I'm hoping that Justin will help me with the attendance tonight.
Sure. CJ Brada,
President, White Lake.
Rhonda Grubb.
Here
You're in White Lake, I presume.
in White Lake.
Kathleen Asseltine,
Here, White Lake.
Deb Darren,
Here, White Lake.
Mary Carlock,
Here, White Lake.
Andrea Voorhees, absent.
And we also have Chris Olson here from Huron River Watershed Council joining us tonight. I'm not sure who this other person is there. So, all right, we're gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance, and John's gonna put up the flag. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
and
justice
justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. Thank you for the nice flag. Okay, we have an agenda tonight. It's a pretty simple agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Being proposed? Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve?
Okay, do we have a second? That's Kathleen motion.
Support.
Okay, Rhonda's support. And all in favor, say aye. Or
Aye.
raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? No opposed. We also have the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 meeting that was provided to us by Justin. Is there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the March meeting minutes.
By CJ, second.
Support. Rhonda,
Okay.
give it to Rhonda.
Okay, Rhonda again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Okay, thank you. Now we have a call to the public. And John, can you see if there's any public or Justin waiting to speak or?
There is no one in the waiting room waiting to speak.
Oh, okay. All right, but we are being recorded, so if anyone wants to speak at another meeting, they can always attend virtually and someday in person again. So I'm going to turn it over to Justin and Kathleen. We have for our invited guest introduction.
Sure. So I just want to thank Kathy for organizing this and Chris for taking the time tonight to join us for our meeting. And we are live on YouTube. So while we don't have any members of the public who have called in, they may be watching online and can refer back to the presentation later. I think, Chris is more than capable of introducing herself. So we will turn the floor over to you and you have our attention.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to share my screen here. For that. And turn it into a slideshow.
Looks like success.
So far, so good.
Yep,
Great.
there it is.
Okay,
I'm gonna
well,
turn my
thanks.
Camera off.
So you can see me and the screen or just the screen?
You can see you and the screen. We're
Okay,
on
great.
little thumbnails to the right.
Yeah, a little thumb. Okay, great. Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. I'm going to share the story of our river, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Watershed Council and ways that folks in White Lake Township can become involved. I'm the watershed ecologist at the Huron River Watershed Council. I've been there since 1992, and I work on a variety of programs, including working with local governments on policies for water quality and land protection. And I also work to educate residents about the impact that we all have on the water, and I do watershed ecology, land assessment, and protection. And so the Watershed Council was founded in 1965. We do research and education, and we protect and restore the river for healthy and vibrant communities. That's kind of our mission statement. So we build partnerships amongst communities. There's 67 different local governments in the watershed, and we have 14 staff. And we also have 1,000 members and 500 volunteers. And so for those of you who are members of the Watershed Council, you know that a great deal of what we do can't be done without our membership. So thank you for that. If any of folks want to become members or learn more about it, feel free to check out our website. And I'm going to show you our website a little bit later. So here is a map of our watershed. White Lake Township is up. I'm sure you know where it is, up northeast of Milford there. You're up in the headwaters area. And so a watershed is made up of all the land and creeks and wetlands and everything that end up in the river. It's a little bit easier to see in a mountainous area like Colorado, because that's kind of where the ridges are between the mountains. But we have ridges here in Michigan. And so we flow through 7 different counties. And like I said, 67 different local governments. We end up in Lake Erie. It's about 125 miles down the river. And it's about 650,000 people live here. And a third of the river is afforded special protections via the Michigan Natural Rivers Program. So that's pretty special. And we have a lot of animal and plant life, a very diverse area, especially for Southeast Michigan. There are over 90 species of fish and 34 species of reptiles and amphibians. And we have a lot of state and federal protected species. And it's the country's only catch and release smallmouth bass fishery that's on a river. And I only just read that now in the notes. I did not know that. That's very impressive. So we have a lot of different programs, dozens of projects. This is just a snapshot from our website. These are only some of our programs. We do a lot of field monitoring programs. We were talking about that a little bit before. We have people go out and look for the aquatic insects that live in the stream, and those serve as an indicator of how healthy the stream is. But we also do chemistry and flow monitoring of the water itself. And we do assessments of the natural areas that are in the watershed. So it's not just the river itself, but it's the entire watershed. And we also do STEM education. So we have for instance, we have a program with the Y, the Y here in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. We take kids snorkeling during their summer camps in the Huron River. So that's a lot of fun, and we do a lot of work with stormwater. So White Lake, I don't know, you're north of the Norton Creek area, so that's where Wixom is. We're doing a pretty extensive stream bank restoration program there in, oh, I forgot the name of Gibson Park, right along the bike trail there. So, and we also have the Huron River Water Trail project, which is helping people to access the river with paddling and biking, and learning that the river is a wonderful asset to have in the community. So like I say, we do recreation, and we do work to protect our drinking water, and it's all about the water. So it's easy to take for granted all of the things that our water does for us. And so it provides all of these services like recreation. Like I said, there's a lot of studies out now that show that property values are higher in areas that have water amenities. Drinking water, the Huron River provides drinking water for all of the people in the city of Ann Arbor, as well as some of the surrounding townships. And then most of the residents of the watershed, if they're not getting their water from the Huron, they're getting it from the Huron watershed in the form of groundwater. I know White Lake has some municipal wells, some public wells, and then a lot of private
Community wells, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that water is obviously coming from rainwater, and it depends on the activities on the land, how high quality that water is. So the river wasn't always the wonderful place that it is today. Much of the industry and commercial activity was done along the river because that's how they transported everything. So these are pictures from the 1800s in Ann Arbor. So you can see that it had a lot of use and not very clean use. I think there's some other pictures here. So we have accounts from the 1960s of waters actually changing color downriver, depending on which business was dumping what kind of waste. So what are the major threats to our water today? I mean, we have this wonderful watershed, provides drinking water, provides recreational services. It has the largest state park in the state is in our watershed, the Pinckney and parts of the Waterloo Recreation Area. So we do have a lot of challenges. We have challenges having to do with land use, hydrologic challenges. There are a lot of dams on the river. We have non-point source pollution. So that means it's the kind of pollution that doesn't have a particular source, like runoff from roads, rooftops, fertilizers, that kind of thing. And then legacy pollution, of course, from those, from the
Chris,
Lost her.
it looks like you're muted at the moment and your
okay.
share
Back.
went down.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to try this again. Are we good now?
It's back.
Okay, good. Okay, so every time it rains, the water lands on the land, and anything that it can carry, that it carries into the drains or into the creeks, ends up in the river. So you can see that there. And so a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do is talk to folks at local governments and residents about development trends. What is it about the various kinds of land use that has an impact on the water? We lose the natural areas that populate the watershed. Those natural areas do a lot of ecosystem services to keep the water clean. And I have a slide to show you that in a minute. Clearing the natural vegetation. Often the buildings are up to the water's edge. Often not so much anymore, but about at least a half of the wetlands in the watershed have been drained or filled. And then the increasing of those impervious surfaces that you saw before, those are just conduits of pollution into the river. And so just to give you an idea of what that means, when you take a piece of natural landscape, that is not very impervious, right? Because there's woods, there's wetlands, there's just natural land. Water hitting that natural land will soak into the ground. Okay, and so scientists have actually shown that as you increase the level of impervious surface in a watershed, you increase the level of pollution and the degradation of the water quality and the hydrology. So for instance, just to give you a picture, if a watershed is under 10% impervious, and so this is going to be in the least developed of our watersheds, it's going to look like this. It's going to have banks that are not high. It's probably going to have a wooded riparian area along its banks. It's going to have clear running water. It's going to have woody debris that's in the water that serves as habitat for creatures. Once you reach 10 to 25% impervious surfaces, you can see that the water is clouding up because whenever water runs, whenever it rains, water is carrying sediments off of pavement and off of lawns, off of dirt roads, off of plowed fields and into that water. The less impervious you are, the less vegetation you have. And so the more sunshine is shining down onto that creek and making that water warmer. And once you get into a really urban situation, above 25%, you've pretty much degraded your creek. This is Miller's Creek in Ann Arbor. And those banks are, higher than my height. And it's very difficult for creatures to live in this or for the water quality to maintain any quality because it's either drought, it's either empty or it's gushing. You can imagine where that top of that bank is, where the grass starts. After a storm, that's how high the water is. And so it's gouging itself out when it's at those high levels of storms. So this is just a graphic picture of that. The left picture is, this is the natural situation. So you can see the rainy day happens and the water slowly kind of fills in and gets a little higher. Because what's happening is when that rain falls, it's intercepted by the trees and the grass. What doesn't get intercepted by the vegetation falls into the ground and slowly seeps through the ground into the surface water. So what happens when it's partially developed is that curve gets shorter and higher because the rain water floods more quickly into the creek. And then you've totally changed that curve if you're mostly developed, because when it rains, all the rain immediately goes into the creek, as well as whatever it's carrying with it, dirt, fertilizer, pollution. And then when it isn't raining, it will empty out quicker because it doesn't have the groundwater filling it in as a kind of a backup, or giving it that constant flow. So that's not very fun to talk about, but we do have successes to talk about. So one thing is that I mentioned the natural rivers designation. So between Kent Lake Dam and Portage Lake, and then further down from Portage Lake, all the way down to the city of Ann Arbor, the river has been designated a natural river district. So that means there are certain development restrictions that keep the land looking natural. So you're not allowed to build further than 100 feet closer to the river, and that you want to maintain that that natural look. Have people been paddling through that part of the rivers, that past Kensington Metro Park and Island Lake and up to Huron Meadows? I mean, when I go there, I feel like I'm up north. I didn't need to take the drive up north. So we want to keep that. The other thing that's doing is it's allowing that water to stay clear and cool and clean. And if you have paddled through there, you can look down, you can always see the bottom. It's very clear. If you go to, say, the Raisin River, which is just one watershed over from us, that's not the case. You can't see the bottom because it's got sediment in it. Now, there's some geological differences, but to a large degree, it's that groundwater constantly coming in and that gravel sediment that you see, the rocks, the gravel, and the sand that keeps it that way. And so we've partnered with a lot of recreational places to make people understand that keeping water clean is a good economic idea. And so we've seen a big jump in paddling. And we've been able to keep the water clean for numerous threatened species that are in the water, including a lot of mussels, which is kind of interesting to me. In fact, I was just at a meeting, and what were they doing? We were talking about the Penn Dam, which is in Ypsilanti. So one of the dams that we're thinking about possibly being able to remove is down in Ypsilanti, the Peninsular Paper Dam. And they actually, local mussel expert professor went out and walked in waders around there and found some threatened species of mussels. So just on a casual walk into the river. So we do have quite a nice biodiverse river, although that could cause some problems with, and we'll have to do extra work around that project, but it's kind of a good problem to have. I don't know what this little guy is. The least shrew. Okay, so we've got that in our watershed, and that's a threatened species. And the Massasauga rattlesnakes, I think you've got have had some sightings in maybe in Springfield Township. If you had sightings in any of the areas in White Lake that you know of?
I think Kathy's nodding yes.
I'm trying to, yes, I have them on my property.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I know they're at Indian Springs.
Yes.
In fact, there's a protected area that's borderline Springfield Township and White Lake.
Right,
So,
right.
Yeah, they're here.
Yep. I remember our staff, for a staff outing, we did a creek walk of the river through White Lake Township. And I was looking at the landscape on either side, and it looked like really good habitat for that, because there's fen, because the Massasauga needs upland land, it needs like this fen type wetland system, and it needs upland area of the fen. So it likes to dig its or use holes that are created in a sand and gravelly kind of substrate. And so it needs both wetland and upland. It's probably one of the reasons why it's a threatened species, because it needs more than just its little tiny patch. So these are pictures from a successful project that we did in Dexter, where the city of Dexter now, it was a village, removed the dam that was on Mill Creek down there. And I don't know if anybody remembers driving, if you've ever driven by there in the past, when you went over that dam, you look to the south, it would just be this big marshy pond, all muddy and really taking up a lot of space. And this picture on the north, the top left is what it looks like now. It's just a series of, it's a meandering stream that goes through these wetlands. This is the floodplain area. And then they've built part of the border to border trail, which goes through Washtenaw County. It's a bike path. And so this is a section of that. And so it's a really great amenity for the community. And we do work in green stormwater infrastructure. So this is, again, the stream bank restoration projects. There's been several successful projects to install these sorts of things. So this is the idea of, if you're going to be building, you're going to be taking away that natural infiltration capacity, right, of the natural lands that you're constructing on. And so what we want to do is try to mirror those ecosystem services that you're taking away by building what you just destroyed, which, you know, it's better to prevent that in the first place. But if you have to build somewhere, right? And so we want to instead of just building these stormwater structures that hold back the water with our, you know, engineering, we want to be able to use nature and have living structures like rain gardens, and things like that. So bioswales is another term that you may have heard, green roofs, things like that, so that you're infiltrating that water just like the wetland or the woodland used to do. We've done some habitat restoration projects as well. So I mentioned the one along Norton Creek. And also back to Ypsilanti, they have a riverside park there, and we've done a restoration project there to restore some fish habitat for the smallmouth bass. And what they did is they just felled some trees, so they went into the river, and then they created habitat around that. Has White Lake Township looked into, have you heard the term or looked into the coal tar issue?
I'm familiar with it, and I know that some communities have passed ordinances prohibiting that in their municipalities.
Right. So 19 Michigan municipalities have adopted ordinances for that. So that's something that the Watershed Council can help White Lake Township with. Meridian, I think it was Meridian, was it either Meridian Township or Lansing just had a hearing about that. It looks like they're going to be passing one.
Justin, weren't you from Meridian?
I was the one who tracked down someone else at the Watershed Council to get that started there. So I know
Excellent.
all
That was
about
probably
that.
Rebecca.
It was Rebecca.
Yeah, yep. And then the new threat that's rearing its head has been PFAS. I'm sure you've heard about that in the news. So we've been working alongside lots of partners from the public about that, and lobbying the state and the federal government to bring in better standards for that. And so that's an ever-changing, ever-evolving issue. And so that's something that we're working on. So what can you do? So those are the things that the Watershed Council is working on with the help of our members and volunteers. So I'm just going to go over some of the things White Lake Township as a government could do, and also your residents. But one of the first things, this is my big issue, is in terms of land use planning. So I talked about the ecosystem services that those natural areas bring us, the riparian areas, how they keep the river clean. I think the number one thing that governments can do, because governments are the ones that are in charge of the land use planning, is to protect those natural areas when you can. So keeping that impervious surface level down on a scale of where those patterns of land use are happening. Then knowing that we will have development and we don't want to be against development, when you are planning for development, plan it in a way that reduces those impervious surfaces. Take a look at ordinances perhaps in terms of road widths, parking lot widths, what's it called, ground floor coverage, and those sorts of numbers. They're boring, but they can make a cumulative impact to reduce those impervious surfaces. And then once you have that development built or designed for, what are those human-made green stormwater infrastructure practices that you can put in? And there are stormwater ordinances available that will help guide that. And there are a lot of developers now who are kind of on the bandwagon with developing those structures. And there's a lot of work just ongoing about the best way to do those things. So that's kind of my sort of pyramid of priorities there. And so the idea is that we want to have development in the location wise. We don't want to use up any more of the fens and woodlands and groundwater recharge areas and riparian areas up. We've already taken away more than half of the wetlands, and we've already taken away all the woods, right, in Michigan, and all the woods that we have now are second, third, fourth growth. So we want to stop that, and we want to take the land that we have already developed in some way. We got plenty of space within those areas to accommodate whatever population growth we're getting in our communities. And in Michigan, we don't even have a big population growth to worry about like some of these other states. So I think we should be able to do that. Politics are no, right? And so then there's controlling where development happens, and then again, how it happens. Do you want to have areas where you're using green stormwater infrastructure, or where you're using natural methods to control that water? We don't necessarily want to use up so much land per household. And then some of the green stormwater infrastructure pieces is using native plants when we can. So I'm also a trustee with Ann Arbor Township, and so we have some rules about landscaping where we really promote the use of native plants as opposed to just saying put any kind of landscaping in that you want. Trees are incredible workhorses in terms of sucking up rainwater, in terms of cleaning the air, providing shade. There's been a lot of work lately in terms of the co-benefits that trees and natural landscapes provide, both in terms of reducing urban heat island effect. As we increase impervious surfaces, we also heat up the area where we live. And because climate change is such an issue, that's only going to make things worse. So trees provide both water quality benefits and climate change benefits. And then I talked about rain gardens too, and that's something that residents can do on their own. I don't know if the county has a program, but Washtenaw County has a rain garden program where they work with residents and provide resources. So they have a master rain gardener program. I don't know if Washtenaw does, or I'm sorry, I don't know if Oakland does. Do you guys know? I know Oakland County has a really good CISMA, so that's Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. So if you just Google Oakland County CISMA, they could probably provide some information about that. And then if the counties, and maybe I know that Oakland County does have a really proactive planning department and water resources folks. I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't get some leverage with adopting some of Washtenaw County's master rain gardener programming. And that is all I have for tonight, but I'm happy to take questions.
Wow, that's a lot of information. Thank you very much. I'm interested in you know, the ordinance things that I don't know how the rest of the township is keen on that. But if we take baby steps and you know, give developers credit when they do things voluntarily, you know, with their site plan review and that kind of thing, I think there's ways without, you know, forcing it, we can still encourage it. And I'd be interested in learning more about your ordinances and model ordinances, that kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
am I still sharing my screen? Right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Oh,
let
yeah.
me
It's a
show you-
website.
Oh, you know, I only shared that. Let me unshare and share again. I should always just share my whole desktop. So I always end up doing this. Okay. So this is our website, and actually, so Kathy attended one of our change makers workshops, and in there we talk about ordinances. And after that workshop, I thought, well, why don't I put these ordinances on our website? So I will show you where they are. So this program that we call Change Makers is a program to the first idea was to educate residents of all the different local governments in the watershed about what local government even is. A lot of residents don't think about it too much, and the impact it has on water quality and land use. And so we talk a lot about that. And then this last spring, we decided to hold the same thing, but for local elected officials. And so it's really a lot of the same material, and it's great for local elected officials to know the same kinds of things. So this is our Changemakers website.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and so this is, let me see here. So I just wanted to show you under our resources.
Which we have so many, lake livers and people who live on the
Exactly.
river, and I live on a swamp, so
That's
lots of water here.
not it. Must be this one. It's not showing up very well, but it's there, I promise you. So the idea behind this website is for local governments and this isn't it either, but this is another resource you can go through if you're interested in the zoning. We talk about the top things that governments can do. What are the zoning ordinances you can think about?
Right. And of course, Oakland County has a really great green infrastructure plan.
Exactly, right.
And of course, part of that was with the township we worked on a long time ago.
It's an excellent website. It's quite extensive and you can spend quite a long time going through it. So
Yes.
I highly recommend that on a snowy, rainy day that you check it out.
Yeah, this is a whole list of all the ordinances that we've been involved in one way or another.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of them are from Ann Arbor Township, but there's Brighton Township and Scioto Township and some other ones.
So what was your involvement with those? I mean, did they just kind of look at what you presented and use?
In some cases, in other cases, we were
consulting.
For instance, Scioto Township was working on their wetland ordinance and they just had us as part of the review process.
Mhm.
In other cases, for Ann Arbor Township, I was on their natural features committee because I also live in Ann Arbor Township. So, and then also for wetland ordinances, we were hired by the state to develop a model ordinance.
Oh,
that communities
okay.
can adopt. So that would be, they'd be kind of guaranteed that the state attorney general had looked through all the language and so he wouldn't get sued. So that's kind of a good place to start. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a great resource for us.
Yeah.
Because everybody here, for recreation and land values, everybody lives on the water somehow.
Right.
And then also, we all have like a lot of private wells and septic systems that all need special care.
So that might be, you might be interested in some of the, we have a lot of information on lakeshore management. And we partner with the Michigan Lakeshore Management folks. So we have riverfront and lakeshore properties information. So there's a lot of things that you can share.
I don't know if we have links on our website to other sites, but if we do, it'd be a good one to add as a first baby step.
Right.
So I've been blathering on. How about anybody else have questions or comments? I can't see everybody anymore, so.
Hero.
I'll give anybody else an opportunity before I put my 2 cents in. Anybody else?
I was gonna say, I think it was a great presentation, and as was mentioned earlier, 100% of White Lake Township residents get their drinking water from the Huron River watershed. So protecting it, keeping it safe, keeping it clean is very important for everyone that lives in this township.
Right.
We have an added duty to others downstream. We are at the headwaters. And what's, a matter of what we send downstream just has a cumulative effect. So we almost have an extra burden because we are
Right.
the furthest point upstream in this watershed. The other comment I wanted to make is that this is good for Stanley Park since we're in the planning phases. But these ideas certainly can be applied to much more than Stanley Park in terms of future development. And Justin, I don't know, maybe this is something we can, take up another time with Supervisor Colwell, but is there, where would be appropriate for us, some of us to form some kind of subcommittee or something to try to look into Oakland SISMA or some of the, the landscape ordinances that Chris mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not prepared to talk about that right now because it is, policy changes that we need to discuss with the supervisor. I think generally, as Mary said, we have a couple members of this committee that are on the planning commission. So when projects come in and you're looking at, how is this, residential development controlling their stormwater runoff? And is there something that can be done and encouraged to, provide some type of, I'll call it an amenity for lack of a better term for, the way we're treating that runoff as opposed to some other way that may not be so friendly to the watershed. So just looking at development proposals in that way and being conscious of it is a really big step,
Mhm.
And it's not going to the point of passing an ordinance, which may or may not be,
Mhm.
received favorably.
Mhm.
But there's ways that when you review a project that you can push those green practices
Mhm.
and support
Yes,
them at
yeah.
the planning commission.
Right, just for our water quality since we live directly off the watershed. Okay, anybody
Thank you,
else?
Chris. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you
sure
so
thing.
much.
Thank you,
And
Chris.
Really appreciate it.
We'll be in touch to see how we could have some kind of a event for White Lake. I am, thanks to you
Mhm.
all, a member of the Huron River Watershed Council. So I am sure that through my connection with that, we'll be able to set up something.
Sounds great.
That'd be great. Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Chris,
Okay.
for coming tonight in our remote way. Sometimes remote makes it a little easier to attend
Yeah, right?
our way. Yeah.
No dogs barked during this either, so that was good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Chris, and maybe we'll have you back if you're willing to
Sure,
come.
absolutely.
Maybe this fall, and we can do a presentation on
Yeah.
another topic or follow up and further
Absolutely.
engage on some of the stuff we discussed tonight. So we really appreciate your time and sharing this with us. And again, this is on the Township YouTube channel. It's broadcast
Great.
live. If anyone else is interested and wants to watch after the fact, they
neat.
can tune in that
When
way.
will that
So,
be up?
as soon as this meeting is over.
Wow, okay.
So probably in the next hour.
Not gonna watch it,
I
it's
need-
too embarrassing. I can
I don't like
share it though.
But
I
you
don't
did
like to
fine.
see or hear myself either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do that either.
Thanks,
Okay,
Chris, for
thanks a
coming. I
lot.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
Thank Kathleen again for setting that up for us.
Yes.
and
Thank you,
gives us-
Kathleen.
You are so welcome. Thank you for
One of the
making us
more-
space on the agenda.
Yep, one of the most pleasant meetings of the year, I have to say, in comparison to some others. So our next item is Stanley Park picnic tables, which is returned because we didn't know that had the most expensive tables on earth. So I'm going to look at some other tables.
Sure. So the reason, and maybe it's nobody's fault, we brought those tables up for a recommendation because they are the exact same tables at Bloomer. And so that
Right.
was,
High
that was
quality
the-
tables.
they are the Rolls Royce of picnic tables. So maybe we can find an alternative that are similar in nature, but a little more affordable. So I sent in your meeting packet a few different quotes for tables, and I'll try to share them on my screen and we can go through them if you want. So just give me a
Yes,
second.
please.
Yes, and I have a question on it, so I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, let me just bring them up here so we can.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Ipe wood, it's like it's like rot resistant, super hard, durable. It's like Justin said, the most expensive, so lasts forever.
You also cannot carve into it. Vandals find it very frustrating.
And you can't burn them, surprisingly. People
That's right. So
tried to start a little fire at our pavilion at Bloomer, and were unsuccessful. So
right. So that's why we invested in those tables as part of the whole project. But
and they're, like Mary said, they're over 10 years old. I think you and I talked about that, and they are still in great shape. So, so there's a couple of different quotes here, and we'll go through some pictures, and maybe it's better to start with the pictures. So this is a very similar style table to the ones that are at Bloomer, except that instead of Ipe wood, it's recycled plastic. So it's still a steel framed table. You don't have to step over the bench. You can kind of slide in. So it's a very similar style. They have, and this was all in your packet, they have an ADA option. So you can roll a wheelchair under for universal access. So it's longer. You can see in the dimensions here that on both sides, you can wheel up a chair if needed. And then our township supervisor is very interested in the social experiment of square picnic tables, and he is encouraging us to consider some table in this manner as a potential option.
Sure.
So again, this would be steel framed and again recycled plastic. So
Something like that might go really good down by the lake to give people different views, rather than just looking front to back.
maybe better for
a smaller group.
Yeah, what the supervisor and I talked about was, something like this maybe leads to better conversation. You can have everyone looking at each other, and, instead of if you're, three in a row on one bench and you can't turn, it's just harder to, this is maybe more of a conversational table. So this was the two quotes that were provided. This first quote is for 4 of these standard tables, and then 2 of the ADA tables. So still
And none of the square tables. Okay.
None of the square tables in the first quote. So this first quote was almost $8,800. That's with shipping. And then the second quote that you see here is a little over $8,800, and that's with 2 of the square tables, 2 of the standard tables, and then 2 of the ADA tables. So while the square tables are slightly less expensive, the reason the shipping is more on this quote is because there are some parts on the square table that come from different facilities. So to assemble that table and to ship the components into one place, it's a little bit more expensive. So that's why you see, even though the unit prices are a little bit
Like
more,
$300.
They need to drop those taxes off of both of those.
They do. Yep, we are tax exempt, and I did let them know that. So that would be dropped. It's just the way that these quotes came in.
Right.
And then I did get one other quote, and tell me if. So this is for, and let me back up a second. When I got these quotes, I'm a little, I don't want to say disappointed in the company, but they didn't tell me I said, we want to get these as soon as possible. We want to use them this summer. The steel frame tables have a longer lead time. So apparently it's very hard to get steel right now, and just like a lot of other materials. So I don't know if these are the best options, because we probably won't see them until the end of our season. So an option where we could get tables in 2 weeks if we wanted is using recycled plastic for the frame and the tabletop. So this is a picture. They look very similar to the other ones. This is a 4-foot table. The one that I quoted was 6 feet.
I
And
really
then-
don't think that's gonna last very,
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
think, again.
And with people sliding them around on the ground, probably not gonna hold up as much as the steel
yeah,
would slide.
I
you know?
don't, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't wanna, did you try did you get quotes from a different supplier at all? Like
I'm
Pilot Rock
working
or
on it.
anything?
I'm working on
Okay.
quotes from a different supplier. The square tables we can get sooner. We can get the square tables in about 8 weeks.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, they have a
uh,
thinner, quite a bit thinner frame, it looks like. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
just my eyes.
so these square tables we could get in about 8 weeks. The other two we wouldn't be able to get for like 16 to 20 weeks.
Well,
So
maybe,
that's what-
maybe we can just get 4 square tables for now and not deal with them, and just get that for this year and be done.
Yeah. So
Then,
I will check another supplier. It's very difficult. I'm not saying that as an excuse, but you would be surprised at how hard it is to get people to sell you picnic tables. So
Who knew?
who
does
knew?
does the square table seat 4 or 8?
I would say you could get 2 on a bench, so that would be seating 8.
Well, Justin, can you go up to the dimensions of the square one? Like,
How long
Uh,
is that seat?
yeah, that's what I
Uh,
want to know.
You're not telling
uh,
us.
They
Oh,
don't
it
tell.
showed it 36 inches, so 3 feet.
Oh yeah, 3 feet.
So 8 skinny people, 4 regular sized people, or people
Families.
who are close to
Oh.
each other.
Would
Right.
there be a way to like approve tonight, getting like a certain number of the square tables and then approving getting the regular size picnic tables and just get like a second shipment later this season? So that way we have something to start out with, and then we get like the majority of them, maybe, I guess, would it be midsummer?
Potentially, yeah. I mean,
2
there's-
now and 4 later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is an option with the square table where one of these benches are gone, and then it's just you wheel a wheelchair up.
Then
So-
that's the one for accessibility.
That's their accessibility. So you could get, 4 of these, and then you could get 2 with just 3 benches. There'd be one side without a bench, and then you could roll a wheelchair up to it. So I don't know,
Or yeah.
I don't know
Kind of
what.
prefer myself, I don't know about you guys, but like to have the longer ADA. That way everyone can kind of, if you need it, you can use it for that. And otherwise, like families could use the picnic table rather than just having a seat missing.
I'd probably prefer that too. That's more. I
Yeah,
don't know.
user
I
friendly.
think, yeah, I mean, you'll be fine. It won't be any, and no one's gonna come by if we order 2 of these and then the rest later, or just order 3 of these until you see if you got the grant, and then get, then the rest of the tables come in with the grant.
And like I said,
See-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, of course, that's 2 years down the road, likely.
Yeah, I know Rick or Supervisor Cole. wanted to
Whatever
get it
Rick,
this
whatever
summer.
Rick wants to do is fine.
Well,
Um,
I
go ahead,
think what we could do is I'm still checking with one other supplier on a table that looks very similar to this. So I'll see what the lead times are and the prices. I mean, if everyone is generally supportive of getting 4 of the square tables, I could check to get something like this from another company at a shorter lead time. Or if I can't get it sooner, then maybe, like Mary said, we'll just get the 4 tables for now as a start.
Can you go up to the top, Justin, where it was the first quote without the square tables? I think it was like 6 tables total, like 2 ADA and 4 regular.
Yeah, and then again, we'd take out the tax, so 8,300.
I like the square tables.
How many square tables did you guys think we want? Do we want to keep the same amount of the ADA and the regular ones up top and add the square, or do you want to take some of the regular tables down to like 2?
Could order it all at once and then, yeah, maybe,
Because I guess if we did one giant order, like they're gonna ship whatever they have available first. So
Maybe.
even though it's on one order, it won't matter.
but they also
Maybe.
might say that
Sure.
shipping quote is for one shipment. And, you know, they're not gonna deliver until they have them all, so that
Well,
would
and
be
I
a
guess if
question.
that's the case, Justin would have to ask, and if that's the case, we'll split up our order if we go with this company.
Yeah, we'd probably pay more in shipping because there'll be 2 shipments.
Yeah, I think, it really is what you guys want to do. Like I said, I'm still checking with another company that can provide similar style tables. And we'll see what their prices are, and maybe they can get them sooner. I think maybe a direction from you guys tonight is, hey, we'll get X number of square tables, X number of ADA tables, and we're not gonna, exceed, total and cost X amount of dollars. And then we would recommend that to the township board, and move forward.
What type of
because-
ADA tables does everyone like? Do you guys like the type like it's on the screen now with the seat removed, or would you rather just have the ADA be the basic ones?
I like the
Standard.
elongated tables for that.
Okay.
Myself.
And
myself.
technically, it can be just elongated on one end if that's a cheaper table. You don't.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
so we for
required
sure
to.
want to have 2 ADA, I'm assuming.
That's the minimum usually if you want to, but it's a temporary situation.
I'm just using
Right.
the number of 6 tables total because that's what came up last time. I'm not stuck on that. I'm not stuck.
Yeah,
on
well, I don't want to get a lot more than that because I think
Yeah.
that'll be about right for
Right
not having
now.
any facilities
think-
at all there.
I think 6 is an appropriate number of tables to buy at this point.
Yeah,
think
maybe
6
2 of the
is a good number.
squares and then 2 ADAs and 2 standard picnic tables, and they can go various places in the park. And if we have to
And
pay
we
for
can
a
kind of
second
see who
shipping,
uses what and which one
Yeah.
people prefer before we do another order for the
Right.
future.
we can do somebody's science fair project where they
Okay.
social
So it could be a
study.
social experiment. So I
Yeah.
think I am
Good idea.
I think I'm getting that we want the steel frame tables because they're obviously going to be more durable. I
Yeah.
think we're all okay with the recycled plastic. So what I'll do, I'll work with this company and the other supplier that I'm still getting quotes from for the 2 square tables, the 2 standard tables, and the 2 elongated ADA tables. They're going to look very similar to what you have just seen.
Yeah.
And we'll use a cost not to exceed, based on these quotes, I would say
Like 10.
probably 8,000.
With
I would
the
say
shipping
8,000. Well, okay, yeah, probably 10,
or
sorry. 'Cause this,
plus shipping.
yeah, 8,000
Okay.
plus shipping.
Do you want a motion about,
Right. What?
okay,
I was just gonna ask a question about, I know Andrea's not here tonight, and last meeting we talked about trying to get this walked on to the next board meeting, which I know is next Tuesday. But Justin mentioning, I'm trying to get this other company, which I think we should, try and pursue and get a quote from them. I know we're trying to get this done as soon as possible for, getting the order in so we can get these ordered and delivered for summer use. So I was gonna ask Justin if he thinks it's possible somehow. I know Andrea's not here. I was gonna ask her if she could walk it on the board meeting. If we're prepared to do that, if we get their quote back, if there's any way we can get this going for next week's board meeting, so we can get it ordered and looked at for, through the supervisor and the trustees.
I'll ask Supervisor Kowal. So I'll try, like I said, I'm trying to get that other quote and to compare it to this and compare the lead times.
Because if you're not gonna be able to get a quote from anytime soon, I'm assuming they're not gonna be delivering anytime soon. So I guess we really only have the one option.
Right. Well, even if we don't have the other quote and they get it to me in 2 weeks, if we have the recommendation that we're going to get, 2 of this, 2 of this, 2 of this at a cost not to exceed X, I think that's good enough for the board. So
Yeah, so that way they can get it and get us some tables for summer. Okay.
and they'll have the pictures of from this quote. The like I said, the other tables look almost exactly the same. They're just from another supplier. So
okay. So CJ, you want to do a motion for us?
I'll do a motion to approve the 2 ADA, the 2 regular picnic tables, and the 2 square tables not to exceed $8,000 plus the shipping, so $10,000 total.
Okay, any discussion? Can we have a second of that motion?
Do we need to specify that we're going with the powder coated steel versus the total plastic, or is that implicit?
You can specify.
Yeah,
I'll
add
amend-
powder coated steel frame.
I'll
Yeah.
amend my motion to include the power code steel picnic tables with steel frame.
I would support that.
All right, any other discussion?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I can't even get my hand to show, but I did say aye. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And thank you, Justin. As I mentioned, there's a couple suppliers out there, but everything's in short supply. So we can't even make cars right now. Here's something that's happy to think about: a summer event at Holly Park.
So this was Kathy Asseltine asked that I add this to the agenda to discuss, and I think that she may be able to talk a little bit more about, she may have a connection with a potential band that could come to the park. We floated out a potential date of Saturday, June 26th. That's a potential date for an event. It's the last Saturday of June. I think Kathy mentioned the band. We could potentially ask some, food trucks or food carts to come to the park, and so there'd be music, there'd be food, and it'd all be outdoors under the pavilion, in the soccer field, in the parking area. So it would be socially distanced. I did provide the township's COVID addendum to park facility rentals, so you had that. The current guidance for outdoor gatherings from the state is a maximum of 300 people. And you need to employ, again, I don't know how you police that, but you employ social distancing.
I'm not worried.
Masking.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would get 300 people. So I don't know with the state of COVID right now, you don't know what COVID's going to be like tomorrow, let alone
Yeah.
at the end of June. So I don't know if this is something that we even want to do. Maybe an event right now in these times isn't the best idea, just for COVID concerns and whether people feel safe or comfortable. But we just wanted to bring it up as something to consider.
I think that I sit on I represent us, White Lake Township at Hess Hathaway. I think they're scheduling their 3 summer concerts, and they bring Billy's tipping in to their concerts. I just don't want to hit on their dates, and I wouldn't mind penciling it in if we, who knows, if our numbers are really high right now, if you look at the county website. So that's kind of disheartening, but the vaccines are going on. So I don't know how the band is. Yeah, Kathleen.
Well, it sounded like a really, really great idea. But then when Justin sent along the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services addendum, I'm concerned because all persons must wear face masks, and that there's got to be a person responsible to make sure people are distancing and wearing masks.
Sounds like a riot to me.
I wouldn't want to put the chief of police in that position to be, down there trying to designate all that stuff, but.
Plus, we were talking Holly Park. I don't know how you, I don't know how you police that. Traverse City is having the Cherry Festival, but they're not having bands, and I'm wondering if it's because of this.
That. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
maybe
as
because
much-
people gathering instead of just walking.
Well,
about.
the policing, the masking stuff, that is really
Yeah.
hard.
I am not volunteering to do that.
It'd be a good
I
PR
don't-
stunt. We definitely get in a spinal column for that, but
Well, yeah. So, what
Free press
what
and the BBC.
what do the rest of you think? I mean, this would, we need something like this, but considering the circumstances, I'm not sure it's feasible at this point.
Yes, Rhonda.
Just from my experience working at my new job and trying to police people with masks, it's very unpleasant. I've seen customers confront other customers that, why don't you have your mask on? And it's none of your business. We have to go up and ask, now it's down to, are you able to wear a mask for us? And there sure are a lot of individuals that are unhealthy and cannot wear masks. And most people are just like, I'm unable to wear a mask, and they'll walk away. But some people are very rude and they get angry. So I don't know if any of us really want to take on that task of confronting people.
No,
And there will be people that show up without it.
You betcha.
especially outside.
Yep.
I mean, I think it would have been a great idea. Definitely a good way to,
Oh.
I think we're all just wanting to get back and do stuff, but it's just not, it's so fluid with what's happening. We don't really know what to do at this point. I don't
Just
want to
don't
book
put it-
something and then have their calendar booked and then,
Yeah.
the band can't do it. So,
Well, I've talked to, I know a lot of musicians in the band that was willing to play at a reasonable price and wasn't booked. They play all the municipalities, and I asked them, are you booking? And all the musicians that I've talked to said the bookings are tentative. So if we're facing the situation, I can't believe Commerce and all the other townships that have Farmington Hills and all that aren't under the same, guidelines. And I don't know how they're going to be able to do this either. So I don't know.
Don't know.
When Kathy and I first talked about this a couple weeks ago, and maybe I was ignorant to it, or it hadn't come out in the news yet. We hadn't, this whole COVID spike in Michigan really hadn't, gotten to the point where it is now. And so we were maybe a little bit more apt
Hopeful.
to consider
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, we're all hopeful, but then,
Then this came up, and then the standards from the state that we would have to follow. I did have an alternative idea, and it is what it is. I mean, we could plan some type of fireworks display, and people could, if we lit them off on the township property next to Stanley Park, and people could park in the library or the J.C. Penney parking lot. So everyone's in their cars and they're with their unit. I don't know if that's enough, just to do something. I
There's
don't know if that's something we want.
I think it's a great idea, Justin, because
Yeah.
it draws people to the downtown area that, we were trying to promote, and maybe we can do it, some coinciding with some type of, happening there.
to me, it's the same thing, though. You're gonna have people, they're not gonna stay in their cars. They're gonna get out, and it's gonna be the same thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think
there's
it's good.
tons of fireworks on the lakes, private ones that way exceed.
Cedar Island.
And yeah, Pontiac Lake has ones that, I mean, they went on so long. I just that's enough. I have to leave. They just went on and on. So I myself, I love fireworks, but I think that would be the same situation. And then it's dark, and I don't know where these people are.
My
I don't know.
personal opinion, while I would love to have some type of event and be social with our community and get people out and enjoying our facilities, I had the vaccine, and I had some side effects. And just I'm no medical expert, from what I've heard, if you haven't had COVID and you have some type of reaction to the vaccine, that's generally how you would feel if you had COVID. And I felt terrible for 24 hours or 36 hours. And I would hate
Oh,
to have some type of event at the township, people get sick and felt the way that I felt, or pass that on to their families. So while I think it's a great idea, I would just sit, we put it on the agenda, we talked about it. I just think, that's just my personal opinion. I think at least through the summer, we don't do anything, and just
in a
like last summer.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're in a pandemic, and when we can do something, if it's in the fall or if it's next spring or summer,
yeah,
then we'll do it well,
yeah,
and we'll
Yeah.
do it safely.
yep.
We don't want to be in the spinal column for all the wrong reasons.
Right. I hate it. I feel when it's like some poor wedding that they decided to hold, or a choir have tried to sing, and then all these people got it from that event and they trace it back to that. And just in general, it's just sounds miserable to get. And of course, we all want to be done with it, but we'll put it
But I
on
do
ice.
thank you, Kathleen, for,
Yeah.
bringing it up and for the idea.
Well,
So-
we'll just, in the future, keep it in mind.
I
Yeah.
know we can get the Oakland
Neat.
County, band, trailer. They
The
can bring
sta-
that
the
eventually,
stage,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
Can you
could-
guys hear me? There is,
Yeah.
am I on?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep.
There is an event at Indian Springs. There's a run, June 5th. It's a Saturday. And they're hosting a 5K and an 8 mile. So I'm just letting you know, in the park, some things are happening or going on, and that's probably a couple hundred. So it's called Run on Plants, and
And
it's,
what we can do is try to share like we always typically do. I know it's hard, but when we get information of events that are happening at,
Yeah.
either one of the state parks, or county facilities, that we can share that on our Facebook page and give that information to our
Right.
followers.
And
If they're
I'll try to get that information on, they're having the farm camp and they're having some camps at Hathaway. They're having I think they're still scheduling 3 concerts. So we'll let them deal with
Yeah.
the liability of that and
okay,
share it with our people.
okay.
So it's
I
just
guess
a
as we're
different-
talking, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, since we're talking about our facilities, so I guess at the point for the summer event, we're not going to do it. We're not going to, I would say at least through the summer, nothing. We're still renting our pavilions and fields, and we're giving the COVID addendum with every application that's signed to kind of just say, hey, you're kind of proceeding at your own risk, and these are the state guidelines that are supposed to be followed for COVID. So if I guess I'd ask, are you guys okay with us doing that, renting the fields and renting the pavilions?
Yeah, I mean, that's them.
I think as long as, they're presented with the addendum and make sure that they understand what's going on, then it's, kind of their liability issue. So I'm fine with it.
Who's gonna police that, though?
I was
I
gonna
just have to be
say,
the coaches of whoever the soccer team or,
Organization. It's not.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't
something
want,
we're
I don't really want
sponsoring.
to shut down the fields for the kids if they want to go out there and have soccer, or, as long as they're following whatever the CDC or whatever the state is,
Well, you do know
Promotion.
that's where one of the spikes in Michigan is coming from, and I have a family member whose family got it was from their child playing basketball, spread it to everybody. So, I mean, that may change, but I don't know that we can count on coaches and whomever to follow the rules. But like I'm tired of being the COVID police, but it's still out there.
what about though, instead of giving them the addendum, maybe give them, this is what the state of Michigan says, and you as the rentor are
User,
is
yeah.
responsible and assume the responsibilities of following these guidelines. Is it the guideline? Is it the law or the law?
Yeah, I think when they sign the application with the addendum, they're kind of acknowledging that. So I'm personally okay with renting the fields and the pavilions. We don't have, at this point, a high activity that the township has seen in other years for rental. So I'm expecting that to be down this year, but we have rented, some of the fields for some dates and a couple of the pavilions for some dates. So like I said, they're not beating down our door trying to rent the things, but I would be okay if you guys are to proceed as we are. We've created the COVID addendum. They have to accept that, and when they sign the application, I think that's almost their acknowledgement, like Rhonda said, that they're taking it upon themselves to follow that guidance or whatever
Their
it is.
people. I mean, these are their people, their
Right.
family or their kids or whatever. But,
So sorry, I didn't mean to add that. It just kind of came up as a side issue, but I'm glad to talk about it
Yeah.
and get everyone on the same page with it.
Certainly still a
So,
concern. And we don't know, say we all get vaccinated, but then the variants, it's like the flu shot, it's kind of good some of the time, but not all of the time.
someone in my family was vaccinated back in February and now has COVID. So
They did.
yeah.
So,
How sick are they?
they have flu-like symptoms, a low-grade fever and a cough, but they
not in the hospital,
got it. They're not in the hospital.
but they
They're-
were
they're-
vaccinated and they still caught it.
They were vaccinated with one of the vaccines that are supposed to have 94 or 95% efficacy, and they were still infected 2 months later.
They're
2
one of the
months later.
5%.
Wow, that's
Yep.
really disappointing, but not surprising. All right, well, we started off with a happy note, and we'll just be optimistic about 2022.
Well,
Yep.
one other idea is that we did talk about, some activity maybe with the Huron River watershed, or maybe some other kind of interpretive thing. We do have a local plant expert that lives down the street from me, where we could have some kind of smaller educational events that might not draw massive crowds, that we could more control, just
Right,
maybe
where
as a
everybody's in a mask and Oakland County is hosting hikes, guided hikes now that you're 6 feet, you maintain your distance with your family and everybody's masked. So
maybe something like that, maybe more low key, more able to
outdoor
contain
event.
yeah. So I'll work on some of that stuff and maybe bring that back to us next meeting.
Sure. That'd be great.
I really do appreciate Kathleen bringing the watershed. I think that the property, it's better that we got the property for a park rather than go into a subdivision. And I think that, as we develop it the way we do, if we put in some, stormwater management with the rain gardens and stuff in certain areas, I think we can keep it healthy and, develop certain parts of it the way we have to get ADA compliance with the roads and stuff. And I think it's going to be good. I think we're all going to be happy with it. So
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome.
definitely. Thank you for doing that. So I see bylaw amendments. I'm not sure what that is, Justin, and maybe I just forgot if you told me.
I think I maybe mentioned it to you in an
Okay.
email, Mary. But so the Parks and Rec Committee bylaws have been in place since 1997. They've never been altered or amended. So I thought it was time to look at them. They don't reflect how we currently operate. So the bylaws try to modernize and simplify and codify how the committee actually operates as more of an administrative function under the direction of the planning department, with consent of the township supervisor. So it's just establishing some procedures for how we operate. It changes some of the ways that we elect the chairperson and vice chairperson. It eliminates the secretary. There is no secretary currently on this committee, and there doesn't need to be, that serves no role. So the bylaws are more procedural, and it's not really going to affect how we do our day-to-day meetings, but it's just going to be just documenting how we currently operate under the direction of the township supervisor.
So what's the procedure for the bylaws? Are you going to send us draft and we pass it, or is that passed by the board?
Well, so it's in your packet. I sent you
Oh,
the
I'm
current
sorry.
bylaws. I sent you the current bylaws. I sent you a red line version showing amendments, and I sent you a
I
clean
apologize.
copy.
I missed it. I just saw those correspondence is all I saw. So
Okay, that's all right. I know there's a lot of material, so.
I read all 45 pages.
okay, you're going to be our subject expert then. And Deb,
Just
just a
one
second.
comment, Justin, on page 3 of Article 3. One of my question was, as I believe the election, it says, uh-oh, where'd you go? Oh, you're pulling it up.
I'm
Okay.
bringing it up.
I think it does mention the committee shall elect from its membership a vice chairperson and a secretary. And it was my impression that I'm talking about the redone version, the amended
The
version.
redone version shouldn't have that on there. So I'm looking
Okay.
at it now and I don't see it.
Okay, I must have gotten my copies mixed up because in one of them it says secretary and I was thinking, oh, I thought we weren't doing a C. Let me go to that. Oh,
So I
Okay,
go
so-
through these generally. Go ahead, Kathy.
that was taken out then. The secretary piece was taken out.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deb
Okay.
had her hand up before you go over them. So
Oh,
can we-
sorry, Deb.
Here.
And see, let me go back to this. I couldn't see whose hand was up.
Deb, you don't have anything?
No, I was agreeing that the secretary should be taken out and it is. taken out.
Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
All right, back to you, Justin.
Sorry, Mary. So I'll go through the red line version. This talks about the committee being established by the township board on February 18th, 1997, and it's created these bylaws. And this is just saying that the bylaws will be available for public review and kept current by the planning department, available upon request of the township clerk. Talks about where the committee office, which is the planning department, where it's located and where it can be accessed. And this talks about the number of members on the committee. So we currently have an even number of 6. We're not obligated to have an odd number. We can have anywhere from 5 to 9 members. I'm satisfied with the membership of this committee. So I don't particularly feel the need to fill any vacancies, and that's not the plan anytime soon. So we'll continue with 6, and there are 3-year terms. You're appointed by the supervisor with approval of the township board. This talks about if you resign, again, a lot of this is standard, but when you resign, you'll give notice to the planning department and then we'll alert the supervisor. This talks about an annual budget. This committee doesn't prepare an annual budget. The parks department or the planning department, because we don't have a parks department, prepares the parks and recreation budget. This is maybe a more substantive change in this section where we eliminate the secretary position. Currently, the chairperson is selected by the township supervisor with approval of the township board, and they serve for a 2-year term. Just like planning commission or zoning board of appeals under the new bylaws, the committee would elect its own chairperson and vice chairperson. So then there would be no secretary position. The officer positions would be 1-year terms. So every year there would be an election of officers and you'd select among yourselves a chairperson and a vice chairperson. And stop me if you want me to.
No, you're doing good.
Succession of office, this just talks about notifying us when someone is resigning. If the chairperson resigns or moves to Florida or whatever, then the vice chair will become the chair. If the vice chair becomes a chair, then there's an election to fill the vice chair position. This talks about the responsibilities of the chairperson and the vice chairperson. So they preside at meetings. They can appoint subcommittees with approval of the township supervisor. And that's generally the powers of the chair. This position says that you can't express your individual opinion outside of the township, and we're not going to tell you when and where you can express your individual opinion. This talks about, if you fail to attend 4 regularly scheduled meetings without having notified us that you're going to be absent, then you may be removed from the committee. So just tell us you're going to be absent. And so this talks about regular meetings and special meetings. So the committee will hold at least 6 regular meetings a year. We'll establish the schedule. The current bylaws said that we were supposed to meet on the first Wednesday of every month, and that's not what we're doing. So we're in violation of our bylaws. So we're going to establish our own meeting schedule, including date, time, and place for each calendar year in accordance with the Open Meetings Act and make that schedule available to the public. Special meetings may be called for any purpose by the chairperson or upon request of 4 or more members of the committee. When there is a special meeting, the planning department will notify you 72 hours in advance, and that may be by email or telephone, and public notice of special meetings must be in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. So the bylaws had a very rigid structure for the agenda that we are not following. And so an agenda outlining the order of business will be developed by the planning department with concurrence of the chairperson. The agenda, which is generally what we do now, the agenda may be reordered by the committee during a meeting and may postpone action on items if it so chooses. This section talks about if there is a public hearing, how it would work. And this is pretty typical at the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals. The chair would introduce the nature of the matter, the committee or staff, or the staff or consultants would provide a report to the committee. The interested person would respond to staff comments. Then the public hearing is opened, and then anyone who's interested may speak on the matter. The public hearing would be closed, and it would be committee discussion and questions. May have additional information needed from staff or the applicant, and then the committee would take action. This just talks about approving minutes. So under this old bylaw, we were supposed to give you draft minutes 7 days in advance of the meeting. We generally do that when we send out the packet, but we're not, going to hold ourselves to 7 days, but that's typically what we do. This amending the bylaws would be changed. So currently bylaws may be amended by a majority vote of the committee with concurrence of the supervisor. An amendment may be proposed at any regular meeting and shall not be acted upon until the regular following meeting. Any additions or deletions of the bylaws by the committee shall be made only after. Some of that's redundant. So if you want to propose a change, I don't think it should take 2 meetings. If you don't want it to, it can take 3 or 4, but it shouldn't be required to take 2. And then the township supervisor would have to concur. And that's, in a nutshell, the substantive changes to the bylaws. So I know I flew through that and you may not have had a chance to look at it.
Fine.
You're not obligated to act on this tonight, and you can't act on this tonight because the current bylaws require 2 meetings. So this will
All
be
right,
back.
Well,
This will be back at another meeting for potential action.
great. Thank you for going all the way through that
Nice work.
and making those changes. Any questions for Justin on that?
Good job, Justin.
And again, it doesn't really change anything. It's just documenting our current
didn't-
practices, and
We didn't know it was out
Yep.
there, but that's fine.
so
Okay. So that
That's-
will be, now that Kathleen's already read it all, I'll
So do
read
we-
it now.
Vote on it tonight, so that way we can return to it next time we meet to finalize the changes, or?
I think it's supposed to
Is that
sit for a
how-
month.
So you're supposed, it's just supposed to sit, so you can't take any vote on it tonight. If there
Okay.
were any changes or, discussion, that's what would happen tonight. So at the next meeting, it can be back on the agenda for action if you so choose.
Okay. Something to look forward to at our May meeting. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
I think
thank
we
you.
have member comments now. We'll go around. On my screen, I have Justin is raising his hand first.
I forgot to put staff report on here, so just a brief
Oh,
update. I think I emailed you all, but our Stanley Park Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application was submitted. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and knock on wood that it's a successful application. There was a lot of work that went into it, and we did post the application in its entirety on the township website. So you can peruse the hundreds of pages that were submitted, and you can see all the work that went into it. It took us a little time. We have a new website. It's a large document, but it was just
Oh.
assembled today. And most of it should be, if not all of it, should be on the Parks and Recreation page on the township website. So for anyone who's interested in the public, you're more than welcome to view the entire document. The the decision on the, if you may recall, the Ralph Wilson Community Foundation grant application that we submitted in January for funds to design the Triangle Trail. We should have an answer in the next 2 weeks on that. So I'll send you an email, and hopefully at our next meeting that we can share some favorable news, but we should be hearing on that soon. There were trash receptacles installed around Stanley Park. So if you go out there now and are walking the property, there's a handful of receptacles. If you have something you need to throw away, you now have a place to put it. And we're still monitoring our facilities, and we're working with our maintenance department to see how everything went through the winter and how it's looking and what we may need to improve or fix. And so we're doing that as the weather gets nicer. And we're also looking at the picnic tables for the park, like we talked about. We're going to get dog weigh stations for Stanley Park.
Great.
Probably 3 of them. But another not so exciting thing, and I don't know, maybe some people love it, but the shipping container at Holly Park will be going away. So
Woohoo.
I hope nobody was too attached to it. It hasn't left yet, but it will be leaving very soon. It's emptied. It just has to go now. So,
Wow, that's been there many years.
so hopefully, by, I don't know, May 1st, maybe a little optimistic, but it's going away. So go take a picture or selfie with it if you're going to miss it. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay.
Have one question. Is there any planned cleanup event like had been tossed around in the past? Citizens
So
cleanup?
Supervisor Kowal had talked about potentially organizing a cleanup day at Stanley Park where we maybe get trash bags or a dumpster or something, and for 2 hours, 4 hours, whenever anyone wants to show up and they want to walk the property and pick stuff up and clean up the park, then we may or may not do that. I know with COVID, if some of our event planning has been kind of waylaid, but that was an idea at one point, Kathy, you're right, to have a cleanup day there. So
Well,
I
the
don't know.
township's done a lot of cleanup. I mean, the last time I walked there, it was in pretty good shape based on,
I don't think we would need to get a
Township
dumpster. I don't think we would need to get a dumpster, but you know, now that we have
know-
tracks,
I know where you can get a used container.
yeah. Now when people are out there though, and we've actually seen it, our maintenance department has, people are, if they see it, they're picking it up and they're throwing it away. So we've putting out the trash receptacles, maybe
Yeah.
the park will just get cleaned from our good stewards of the township. But
That's
Um,
great. Are they seeing people going down there and walking around?
oh yeah, it's being regularly used.
That's great.
So, yep, we're happy to see that. And I've heard from some people that who never knew about the park, and now that they see the rules sign up there, they stop and they look and they walk down there and they're excited about the property, and so we're getting a lot of positive feedback.
There was a lot of publicity for those rule sign, as I recall.
Yep, and they are in compliance now. So,
That's good.
Thank God.
Okay,
but that's all the report that I had. So,
all right. Then we'll go back to member comments, and don't forget to put yourself on the agenda next month. Deb, you've been very quiet tonight. You've seen the world back here in White Lake now.
Yeah, and I did appreciate the 2 letters you sent out, Justin, from the township people about the a couple of comments,
Pickleball.
about extra pickleball courts, and then about the paving. So I think when it gets closer to the actual time that we need to be very specific with our plans, I think the extra pickleball would be a good time to discuss that when. But now is not the time, but I just appreciate anybody who writes in, and we are letting you know that we get your comments and we are taking them seriously and looking into them. So
Yeah, and we do have some other, I still think the Twin Pine Park on
Mhm.
White Lake Road is a potential place for.
Right. Yep.
I don't know if we're going to have a place for a tournament area with a whole bunch of courts, but I
Right.
think we can fit them in lots of places because they're small.
Yeah. Yeah, when the time comes to, really plan those details, they'll
Mhm.
take them into consideration very much.
They're very, very popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you back, and we did miss you.
Thanks.
And I'm excited about the run, so I hope that we can share that information for the brave and healthy souls that are able to do that kind of thing at Indian Springs.
Yeah, thanks.
CJ, I'm going to go clockwise, so on my screen, you're next.
I was gonna ask Justin about the Triangle Trail, but he answered that already. So my other comment was just gonna be, if we can just get somehow either Andrea or Supervisor Cole wants to bring up the item for the meeting on Tuesday, that'd be great for the picnic tables to get the ball rolling on that. I know I got the agenda from Trish on the meeting, so I just don't know how we're gonna get it on there, but I'm sure someone would definitely want to talk about it. So I'm sure Supervisor Cole will bring it up so we can get that going. And other than that, I just really appreciate the presentation. I thought that was great. And then the comments from the two residents, that was good as well. And I'm very thankful we were able to get the pickleball somewhere in the park, as I know it'll be used. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you. Rhonda.
I can give you a little report on the last planning commission meeting.
Right.
Planning commission met, when was that? March 18th. We discussed the West Valley development and recommended final site plan approval to the township board. That development's on the west side of Union Lake Road, across from Carpathian Drive. It's going to kind of be, it's two separate developments, but there's going to be a brother-sister development across the street on the east side there at Carpathian, but they're going to start with this West Valley side. And they are
Is
rental.
that the one where they're taking stormwater from one side and
Yep,
they'll route it across the road? So that's something different.
it is. So we did recommend that final site plan approval to the board. And tomorrow night we have on the agenda a rezoning for a piece of property behind Autozone. Is that going to planned development, Justin? Is that what that is?
They're proposing local business.
Local
So
business. Okay.
Yep, the
From
AutoZone.
planned development.
Right now, it's actually zoned
Suburban
residential.
farm.
It's zoned
Oh.
suburban farm. So they're going or asking to go from suburban farm to local business. Yeah.
Okay. And that's about it. And Justin, I appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. It's obvious you put a lot of into picnic tables and bylaws, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Hey, Kath. Oh, all done? Okay. Kathleen, back to you.
I'm good. Ditto to everything everybody already said.
I really appreciate you lining up our speaker series, and I'm hoping that people were able to watch that and can watch it again later. And so many resources on their site. They've been around, I don't know, my whole life, I think. Have been doing Huron River cleanups from back into the early 70s when I was a kid. So they're a great resource for us. And of course, we are the headwaters. So I'm interested in the things we can do to protect our watershed and all the water that we drink. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on Hess Hathaway, so I will try to get you some of the program information. Also, we're very excited that we are going to get some new calves of a dwarf variety. So they're going to be 2 little steers, and they're already born. So one's going to be red and one's going to be buff. And so that's pretty exciting. A lot of the animals are very old and passing away. Like we just lost Melford, which was a donkey from after 30 years or something. Is very old. And so people, that's very sad sometimes to lose all the older animals. So we're excited to have these new calves coming in. And when that comes, I'll make sure that they share something over to Justin from Waterford Parks and Rec. So our kids can go and see these little calves, and they're supposed to be super friendly with the public. And I'm looking forward to seeing them myself. And we are also ordering turkey eggs, actually. So hoping to see those. About 2 years ago, I bought some guinea hens from, what's that big shop that took over the Walmart at 23? Rural King. So those are my donation over there, but they have lots of different animals and they're trying to deal with COVID just like we all are. So stop by sometime. And that for our newer members, the Hess Hathaway Farm was left to both communities, but it happens to be in Waterford and they have, of course, a full Parks and Rec department. So they take on a lot of the expense, but they're graceful enough to let me have my opinion at least on the board and be a voting member representing our township. So try to report back on that. Otherwise, everybody continue to stay safe and mask up and I hope that no one else with vaccines or without vaccines continues to get sick. So I guess that's all I have. Justin, anything else?
No, I'll just say that
meeting is the
May
12th.
12th is our next meeting. We are going to continue on Zoom for the foreseeable future. I think in July and August, we'll probably try to meet outside. So, but at least the May and June meeting will be on Zoom. July and August, we'll try to do at the park. Or
Was
one of the
so great
parks.
that we were able to do our public meeting on Stanley Park in person with the public, and we had such a big turnout, under times like these. So
Yeah, and I was impressed too when Becca and Rader told me that was their first ever outdoor public visioning session. So we were the first for them.
yeah, they did a
So-
great job
Yeah.
and a great job for us and very, very patient through our trying times. So
Yep. Design by committee isn't always easy. So,
Yeah.
but they did a great job. So, much of the credit on this, all the hard work on the grant application and master plan, I give to Brian Barrett
Yeah,
and Caitlin
I
Jackson.
appreciate the time you put to, 'cause I know how much work an application is. It's not just like a one-page application. People think they start on, the day before and like, I'm going to fill out an application. It's like, I don't think so. Much more work.
I would encourage anyone in the township to take a look at it on the township website
Yeah.
because it really is quite a robust document. And, as a planner, you have to be a professional to fill these out. I mean, it would be a full-time job to complete one of these applications. So
Yep.
there's just so much work that goes into it.
There are a lot more than people understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn
Motion to adjourn?
from Rhonda, a second from Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, someday I'll get my hand up here. There it is. Okay, opposed, no opposed, and we'll see you next month. And stay well and enjoy our great outdoors.